Grateful obeisances unto Srila Prabhupada and to all others. Namo Vishnu Padaya, Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale, Srimate Bhakti-Vedanta Swaminiti Namine, Namaste Saraswati Devi, Gauravani Pracharine, Nirvishesha Shunyavadi, Paschatya Desha Tarine, Vanchakalpatarubhyascha, Kripa Sindhubhyevacha, Patidanam Pavanebhyo, Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namah. So today we are reading to Srila Prabhupada from Krishna book, chapter 69. The great sage Narada visits the different homes of Lord Krishna. When the great sage Narada heard that Lord Krishna had married 16,000 wives after he had killed the demon Narakasura, sometimes he called Bhaumasura, he was astonished that Lord Krishna had expanded himself into 16,000 forms and married these wives simultaneously in different palaces. Being inquisitive as to how Krishna was managing his household affairs with so many wives, Narada, desiring to see these pastimes, set out to visit Krishna's different homes. When Narada arrived in Dwarka, he saw gardens and parks full of various flowers of different colors, and also orchards overloaded with a variety of fruits. Beautiful birds were chirping, and peacocks crowded delightfully. There were ponds full of blue and red lotus flowers, and some of these ponds were filled with varieties of lilies. The lakes were full of nice swans and cranes, and the voices of these birds resounded everywhere. In the city, there were as many as 900,000 great palaces built of first-class marble, with gates and doors made of silver. The pillars of the houses and palaces were bedecked with jewels such as touchstone, sapphires, and emeralds, and the floors gave off a beautiful lustre. The highways, lanes, streets, crossings, and marketplaces were all beautifully decorated. The whole city was full of residential homes, assembly houses, and temples, all of different architectural beauty. All of this made Dwarka a glowing city. The big avenues, crossings, lanes, and streets, and also the thresholds of every residential house were very clean. On both sides of every path there were bushes, and at regular intervals there were large trees that shaded the avenues so that the sunshine would not bother but the passerby.
In this greatly beautiful city of Dwarka, Lord Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, had many residential quarters. The great kings and princes of the world used to visit these palaces to just to worship him. The architectural plans were made personally by Vishwakarma, the engineer of demigods. And in the construction of the palaces, he exhibited all his talents and ingenuity. These residential quarters numbered more than 16,000, and a different queen of Lord Krishna's resided in each of them. The great sage Narada entered one of these houses and saw that the pillars were made of coral and the ceilings were bedecked with jewels. The walls, as well as the arches between the pillars, glowed from the decorations of different kinds of sapphires. Throughout the palace were many canopies made by Vishwakarma that were decorated with strings of pearls. The chair and other furniture were made of ivory and bedecked with gold and diamonds, and jewel lamps dissipated the darkness within the palace. There was so much incense and fragrant gum burning that the scented fumes were coming out of the windows. The peacocks sitting on the steps became illusioned by the fumes, mistaking them for clouds, and began dancing jubilantly. There were many maidservants, all of whom were decorated with gold necklaces, bangles, and beautiful saris. There were also many men servants, nicely dressed in cloaks and turbans and jeweled earrings. Beautiful as they were, the servants were all engaged in different household duties.
Narad said that Lord Krishna was sitting with Rukmini Devi, the mistress of that particular palace, who was holding the handle of chamar whiskey. Even though there were many thousands of maidservants equally beautiful and qualified and of the same age, Rukmini Devi personally was engaged in the fanning Lord Krishna. Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, worshipped even by Narad. Yet as soon as Krishna said Narad entered the palace, he got down immediately from Rukmini's bedstead and stood up to honor him. Lord Krishna is the teacher of the whole world, and in order to instruct everyone how to respect a saintly person like Narad Muni, he bowed down, touching his helmet to the ground. Not only did Krishna bow down, but he also touched the feet of Narad and with folded hands requested him to sit on his chair. Lord Krishna, the Supreme Personality of God, personality worshipped by all devotees. He is the most worshipable spiritual master of everyone. The Ganges water which emanates from his feet sanctifies the three worlds. All qualified Brahmanas worship him and therefore is called Brahmana Deva.
Brahman means one who fully possesses the Brahmanical qualifications, which are said to be as follows: truthfulness, self-control, purity, mastery of the senses, simplicity, full knowledge by practical application, and engagement in devotional service. Lord Krishna possesses all these qualities, and he is worshipped by persons who themselves possess such qualities. There are thousands and millions of names of Lord Krishna, Vishnu Sahasranama, and all of them are given to him because of his transcendental qualities. Lord Krishna in Dwarka enjoyed the pastimes of a perfect human being. Therefore, when he washed the feet of the sage Narada and took the water on his head, Narada did not object, knowing well that the Lord did so to teach everyone how to respect saintly persons. The Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, was the original Narayana and eternal friend of all living entities, thus worshipped the sage Narada according to Vedic regulative principles, welcoming him with sweet nectarian words. He addressed Narada as Bhagavan, or who is self-sufficient, possessing all knowledge, renunciation, strength, fame, beauty, and other similar opulences. He particularly asked Narada, "What can I do in your service?"
Narada replied, "My dear Lord, this kind of behavior by your Lordship is not at all astonishing, for you are the Supreme Personality of Godhead and master of all species of living entities. You are the supreme friend of all living entities, but at the same time, you are the supreme chastiser of the miscreants and the envious. I know that your Lordship has descended to this earth for the proper maintenance of the whole universe. Your appearance, therefore, is not forced by any other agency. By your sweet will only, you agree to appear and disappear. It is my great fortune that I have been able to see your lotus feet today. Anyone who becomes attached to your lotus feet is elevated to the supreme position of neutrality and is uncontaminated by the material modes of nature. My Lord, you are unlimited. There is no limit to your opulences. Great demigods like Lord Brahma and Lord Shiva are always busy placing you within their hearts and meditating upon you. The conditioned souls who have now been put into the blind well of material existence can get out of this eternal captivity only by accepting your lotus feet. Thus, you are the only shelter of all conditioned souls. My dear Lord, you have very kindly asked, "What can you do for me?" In answer to this, I simply request that I may not forget your lotus feet at any time. I do not care where I may be, but I pray that I constantly be allowed to remember your lotus feet.
By asking this benediction from the Lord, the sage Narad showed the ideal prayer of all pure devotees. A pure devotee never asks for any kind of material or spiritual benediction from the Lord. His only prayer is that he may not forget the lotus feet of the Lord in any condition of life. A pure devotee does not care whether he is put into heaven or hell. He is satisfied anywhere, provided he can constantly remember the lotus feet of the Lord. Lord Chaitanya taught this same process of prayer in his Sikshastak, in which he clearly stated that all he wanted was devotional service, birth after birth. A pure devotee does not even want to stop the repetition of birth and death. To a pure devotee, it does not matter whether he has to take birth again in the various phases of life. His only ambition is that he not forget the lotus feet of the Lord in any condition of life.
After departing from the place of Rukmini, Naradji wanted to see further activities of Lord Krishna, eternal potency, Yoga Maya. Thus he entered the place of another queen. There he saw Lord Krishna engaged in playing chess with his dear wife and Uddhava. The Lord immediately got up from his personal seat and invited Narad Muni to sit there. The Lord again worshipped him with as much paraphernalia for reception as he had used in the place of Rukmini. After worshipping him properly, Lord Krishna acted as if he did not know what had happened in the place of Rukmini. He therefore told Narad, "My dear sage, when your holiness comes here, you are full in yourself. Although we are householders and are always in need, you don't require anyone's help, for you are self-satisfied. Under the circumstances, what reception can we offer you, and what we possibly give you? Yet, since your holiness is Brahmana, it is our duty to offer you something as far as possible. Therefore, I beg you to please order me. What can I do for you?"
Naradji knew everything about the pastimes of the Lord, so without further discussion, he simply left the palace silently. In great astonishment over the Lord's activities, he then entered another palace. This time, Naradji saw that Lord Krishna was engaged as an affectionate father, petting his small children. From there, he entered another place and saw Lord Krishna preparing to take his bath. In this way, Saint Narada entered each and every one of the 16,000 residential places of the queens of Lord Krishna, and in each of them he found Krishna engaged in different ways. In one palace, he found Krishna offering oblations to the sacrificial fire and performing the ritualistic ceremonies of the Vedas and enjoined for householders. In another palace, he found Krishna performing the Pancha-yagya sacrifice, which is compulsory for a householder. This yagya is also known as Panchasuna. Knowingly or unknowingly, everyone, especially the householder, commits 5 kinds of sinful activities. When we receive water from a water pitcher, we kill many germs that are in it. Similarly, when we use a grinding machine or eat food, we kill many germs. When sweeping a floor or igniting a fire, we kill many germs. And when we walk on the street, we kill many ants and other insects. Consciously or unconsciously in all our different activities, we are killing. Therefore, it is incumbent upon every householder to perform the Panchasuna sacrifice to rid himself of the reactions to such sinful activities.
In one palace, Narada found Lord Krishna feeding brahmanas after performing ritualistic yagyas. In another palace, Narada found Krishna silently chanting the Gayatri mantra. And in a third, he found him practicing fighting with a sword and shield. In some palaces, Lord Krishna was found riding on horses, elephants, or chariots, and wandering hither and thither. Elsewhere, he was found lying down on his bedstead, taking rest. Somewhere else, he was found sitting in his chair, being praised by the prayers of his different devotees. In some of the palaces, he was found consulting with ministers like Uddhava on important matters of business. In one palace, he was found surrounded by many young society girls, enjoying in a swimming pool. In another palace, he was found giving well-decorated cows in charity to the brahmanas. And in another palace, he was found hearing the narrations of the Puranas and of histories, such as the Mahabharata, which are supplementary literatures for disseminating Vedic knowledge to common people by narrating important instances in the history of the universe. Somewhere, Lord Krishna was found enjoying the company of a particular wife by exchanging joking words with her. Somewhere else, he was found engaged with his wife in religious, ritualistic functions. Since it is necessary for householders to increase their financial assets for various expenditures, Krishna was found somewhere engaged in matters of economic development. Somewhere else, he was found enjoying family life according to the regulative principles of the Shastras.
In one palace, he was found sitting in meditation, as if concentrating his mind on the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is beyond these material universes. Meditation, as recommended in authorized scripture, is meant for concentrating one's mind on the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Vishnu. Lord Krishna is himself the original Vishnu, but because he played the part of a human being, he taught us definitely by his personal behavior what is meant by meditation. Somewhere, Lord Krishna was found satisfying elderly superiors by supplying them things they needed. Somewhere else, Naradji found that Lord Krishna was engaged in discussing topics of fighting, and somewhere else in making peace with enemies. Somewhere, Lord Krishna was found discussing the ultimate auspicious activity for the entire human society with his elder brother, Lord Balram. Narada saw Lord Krishna engaged in getting his sons and daughters married with suitable brides and bridegrooms in due course of time, and the marriage ceremonies were being performed with great pomp. In one palace, the Lord was found bidding farewell to his daughters, and in another, he was found receiving a daughter-in-law. People throughout the whole city were astonished to see such pomp and ceremonies.
Somewhere, the Lord was seen performing different types of sacrifice to satisfy the demigods, who are only his qualitative expansions. Somewhere he was seen engaged in public welfare activities, establishing deep wells for the water supply, rest house and gardens for unknown guests, and great monasteries, and temples for saintly persons. These are some of the duties enjoined in the Vedas for householders for fulfillment of their material desires. Somewhere Krishna was found as a Kshatriya king engaged in hunting animals in the forest and riding on a very beautiful Sindhi horse. According to Vedic regulations, the Kshatriyas were allowed to kill prescribed animals on certain occasions, either to maintain peace in the forest or to offer the animals in the sacrificial fire. Kshatriyas are allowed to practice this killing or because they have to kill their enemies mercilessly to maintain peace in society. In one situation, the great sage Narada saw Lord Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead and Master of mystic powers, acting as a spy by changing his usual dress in order to understand the motives of different citizens in the city and the palaces.
Saint Narada saw all these activities of the Lord, who is the super soul of all living entities, but who played the role of an extraordinary human being to manifest the activities of his internal potency. Smiling within himself, Narada addressed the Lord as follows: My dear Lord of all mystic powers, object of the meditation of great mystics, the extent of your mystic power is certainly inconceivable. Even to mystic like Lord Brahma and Lord Shiva, but by your mercy, because of my being always engaged in the transcendental loving service of your lotus feet, your Lordship has very kindly revealed to me the action of your eternal potency. My dear Lord, you are worshipable by all, and demigods and predominating deities of all 14 planetary systems are completely aware of your transcendental fame. Now please give me your blessings so that I may be able to travel all over the universes, singing the glories of your transcendental activities.
Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Krishna replied to Narada as follows: My dear Narada, O sage among the demigods, you know that I am the supreme instructor and perfect follower of all religious principles, as well as the supreme enforcer of such principles. I am therefore personally executing such religious principles in order to teach the whole world how to act. My dear son, it is my desire that you not be bewildered by such demonstrations of my internal energy. The Supreme Personality of Godhead was engaged in the so-called household affairs in order to teach people how one can sanctify one's household life, although one may be attached to the imprisonment of material existence. Actually, one is obliged to continue the term of material existence because of household life. But the Lord, being very kind upon householders, demonstrated the path of sanctifying ordinary household life. Because Krishna is the center of all activities, the life of a Krishna-conscious householder is transcendental to the Vedic injunctions and is automatically sanctified.
Where are we? Sorry. The Supreme Personality of God? Narada. Thus, Narada saw one single Krishna living in 16,000 palaces by his plenary expansions. Due to his inconceivable energy, he was visible in the palace of each and every individual queen. Lord Krishna has unlimited power, and Narada's astonishment was boundless upon observing again and again the demonstration of Lord Krishna's internal energy. Lord Krishna behaved by his personal example as if he were very much attached to the four principles of civilized life, namely religion, economic development, sense gratification, and salvation. These four principles of material existence are necessary for the spiritual advancement of human society. And although Lord Krishna had no need to do so, he exhibited his household activities so that people might follow in his footsteps for their own interest. Lord Krishna satisfied the sage Narada in every way. Narada was very much pleased by seeing the Lord's activities in Dwarka, and thus he departed. In narrating the activities of Lord Krishna in Dwarka, Sukadeva Goswami explained to King Parikshit how Lord Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, descends to this material universe by the agency of his internal potency, and he personally exhibits the principles which, if followed, can lead one to achieve the ultimate goal of life. All the queens in Dwarka, more than 16,000 in number, engaged their feminine attractive features in the transcendental service of the Lord by smiling and serving, and the Lord was pleased to behave with them exactly like a perfect husband enjoying household life. One should know definitely that such pastimes cannot be performed by anyone but Lord Sri Krishna, who is the original cause of the creation, maintenance, and dissolution of the whole cosmic manifestation. Anyone who attentively hears the narrations of the Lord's pastimes in Dwarka or supports a preacher of the Krishna consciousness movement will certainly find it very easy to traverse the path of liberation and taste the nectar of the lotus feet of Lord Krishna. And thus he will be engaged in Lord Krishna's devotional service. Thus in the Bhaktivedanta purport of the 69th chapter of Krishna, the great sage Narada visits the different homes of Lord Krishna. We're going to do another chapter.
Chapter 70, Lord Krishna's daily activities. From the Vedic mantras, we learn that the Supreme Personality of Godhead has nothing to do, na tasya karyam karanam cha vidyate. But if Supreme Lord has nothing to do, how can we speak of the activities of Supreme Lord? From the previous chapter, it is clear that no one can act the way Lord Krishna does. We should clearly note this fact. The activities of Lord should be followed, but they cannot be imitated. For example, Krishna's ideal life as a householder can be followed, but if one wants to imitate Krishna by expanding into many forms, that is not possible. We should always remember, therefore, that Lord Krishna, although playing the part of a human being, simultaneously maintains the position of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. We can follow Lord Krishna's dealings with his wives as an ordinary human being, but his dealings with more than 16,000 wives at a time cannot be imitated. The conclusion is that to become ideal householders, we should follow in the footsteps of Lord Krishna as he displayed his daily activities, but we cannot imitate him at any stage of our life.
Lord Krishna is to lie down with his 16,000 wives, but he will also rise from bed very early in the morning, 3 hours before sunrise. By nature's arrangement, the crowing of the cocks warns of the Brahma Murta hour. There is no need of alarm clocks. As soon as the cocks crow early in the morning, it is to be understood that it is time to rise from bed. Hearing that sound, Krishna would get up from bed, but his rising early was not very much to liking of his wives. The wives of Krishna were so much attached to him that they would lie in bed embracing him. And as soon as the cocks crowed, Krishna's wives would be very sorry and would immediately condemn the crowing.
In the garden, within the compound of each palace, there were parijat flowers. The parijat is not artificial flower. We remember that Krishna brought the parijat trees from heaven and planted them in all his palaces. Early in the morning, a mild breeze would carry the aroma of the parijat flower, and Krishna would smell it just after rising from bed. Due to this aroma, the honeybees would be being their humming vibrations, and the bird also would begin their sweet chirping sounds. Altogether, it would sound like the singing of professional chanter engaged in offering prayers of Krishna. Although Srimati Rukmini Devi, the first queen of Lord Krishna, knew that Brahma Muhurta is the most auspicious time in the entire day, she would feel disgusted at the appearance of Brahma Muhurta because she was not very happy to have Krishna leave her side in bed. Despite Srimati Rukmini Devi's disgust, Lord Krishna would immediately get up from bed exactly on the appearance of Brahma Muhurta. An ideal householder should learn from the behavior of Lord Krishna how to rise early in the morning. However comfortably he may be lying in the bed embarrassed by his wife.
After rising from the bed, Lord Krishna would wash his mouth, hands and feet and would immediately sit down and meditate on himself. This does not mean, however, that we should also sit down and meditate on ourselves. We have to meditate upon Krishna rather than Krishna. That is real meditation. Krishna is Krishna himself. Therefore, he was teaching us that Brahma Muhurta should be utilized for meditation on Radha Krishna. By such meditation, Krishna would feel very much satisfied. And similarly, we will also feel transcendently pleased and satisfied if we utilize the Brahma Muhurta period to meditate on Radha and Krishna. If you think of how Sri Rukmini Devi and Krishna acted as ideal householders to teach the whole human society to rise early in the morning and immediately engage in Krishna consciousness, there is no difference between meditating on the eternal forms of Radha and Krishna and chanting the Mahamantra Hare Krishna. As for Krishna's meditation, he had no alternative but to meditate on himself. The object of meditation is Brahman, Paramatma, or the Supreme Personality of Godhead. But Krishna himself is all three. He is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Bhagavan. The localized Paramatma is his plenary partial expansion, and the all-pervading Brahman effulgence is the personal rays of his transcendental body. Therefore, Krishna is always one, and for him there is no differentiation. That is the difference between an ordinary living being and Krishna. For an ordinary living being, there are many distinctions. An ordinary living being is different from his body, and he is different from other species of living entities. A human being is different from other human beings, and different from the animals. Even in his own body, there are different bodily limbs. We have our hands and legs, but our hands are different from our legs. The hand cannot act like the leg, nor can the leg act like the hand. The ears can hear, but the eyes cannot, and the eyes can see, but the ears cannot. All these differences are technically called Swajatiya Vijatiya. The bodily limitation whereby one part of the body cannot act as another part is totally absent from the Supreme Personality of Godhead. There is no difference between his body and himself. He is completely spiritual, and therefore there is no difference between his body and his soul. Similarly, he is not different from his millions of incarnations and plenary expansions. Baladeva is the first expansion of Krishna, and from Baladeva expands Sankarsana, Vasudeva, Pradyumna, and Aniruddha. From Sankarsana, there is an expansion of Narayana, and from Narayana, there is a second quadruple expansion of Sankarsana, Vasudeva, Pradyumna, and Aniruddha. Similarly, there are innumerable other expansions of Krishna, but all of them are one. Krishna has many incarnations, such as Lord Nrsimha, Lord Boar, Lord Fish, and Lord Tortoise. But there is no difference between Krishna's original two-handed form, like that of a human being, and these incarnations of gigantic animal forms. Nor is there any difference between the action of one part of his body and that of another. His hands can act as his legs, his eyes can act as his ears, or his nose can act as another part of his body. Krishna's smelling and eating and hearing are all the same. We limited living entities have to use a particular part of the body for a particular purpose, but there is no such distinction for Krishna. In the Brahma Samhita it is said, Angani yasta sakalendriya vritti manti. Krishna can perform the activities of one limb with any other limb. So by analytical study of Krishna and his person, it is concluded that he is the complete whole. When he meditates, therefore, he meditates upon himself. Self-meditation by ordinary men, designated in Sanskrit as soham, is simply imitation. Krishna may meditate on himself because he is this complete whole, but we cannot imitate him and meditate on ourselves. Our body is a designation superimposed upon ourself, the soul. Krishna's body is not a designation. Krishna's body is also Krishna. There is no existence of anything foreign in Krishna. Whoever there is in Krishna is also Krishna. He is therefore the supreme, indestructible, complete existence, or the supreme truth.
Krishna's existence is not relative existence. Everything else but Krishna is a relative truth. But Krishna is the supreme absolute truth. Krishna does not depend on anything but himself for his existence. Our existence, however, is relative. For example, only when there is the light of the sun, the moon, or electricity are we able to see. Our seeing, therefore, is relative. And the light of the sun and moon and electricity is also relative. They are called illuminating only because we see them as such. But dependence and relativity do not exist in Krishna. His activities are not dependent on anyone else's appreciation, nor does he depend on anyone else's help. He is beyond the existence of limited time and space, and because he is transcendental to time and space, he cannot be covered by the illusion of Maya, whose activities are limited. In the Vedic literature, we find that the Supreme Personality of Godhead has multi-potencies. Since all such potencies are emanations from him, there is no difference between him and his potencies. Certain philosophers say, however, that when Krishna comes, he accepts a material body. But even if it is accepted that when he comes to the material world, he accepts a material body, it should be concluded also that because the material energy is not different from him, this body does not actually materially. There's an error there. perhaps does not actually manifest as materially or something. What is it? Does not act materially. Why didn't I not see that? In the Bhagavad-Gita it is said, therefore, that he appears by his own internal potency, Atma Maya.
Krishna is called the Supreme Brahman because he is the cause of creation, the cause of maintenance, and the cause of dissolution. Lord Brahma, Lord Vishnu, and Lord Shiva are different expansions of these material qualities. All these material qualities can act upon the conditioned souls, but there is no such action and reaction upon Krishna, because these qualities are all simultaneously one with and different from him. Krishna himself is simply Satchit Ananda Vigraha, the eternal form of bliss and knowledge. And because of his inconceivable greatness, he is called the Supreme Brahman. His meditation on Brahman or Paramatma or Bhagwan is on himself only and not on anything else beyond himself. This meditation cannot be imitated by the ordinary living entity.
After his meditation, the Lord would regularly bathe early in the morning with clear, sanctified water. Then he would change into fresh clothing, cover himself with a wrapper, and engage in his daily religious functions. Out of his many religious duties, the first was to offer oblations into the sacrificial fire and silently chant the Gayatri Mantra. Lord Krishna, as the ideal householder, executed all the religious functions of a householder without deviation. When the sunrise became visible, the Lord would offer specific prayers to the sun god. The sun god and other demigods mentioned in the Vedic scriptures are described as different limbs of the body of Lord Krishna. And it is the duty of the householder to offer respects to the demigods and great sages as well as the forefathers.
As it is said in Bhagavad-Gita, the Lord has no specific duty to perform in this world. And yet he acts just like an ordinary man living an ideal life with this material world. In accordance with Vedic ritualistic principles, the Lord would offer respect to the demigods. The regulative principle by which the demigods and forefathers are worshipped is called tarpana, which means pledging. One's forefathers may have to take a body on another planet, but by performance of this tarpan system, they become very happy wherever they may be. It is the duty of the household to make his family members happy, and by following this tarpan system, he can make his forefathers happy also. As the perfect exemplary householder, Lord Sri Krishna followed this tarpan system and offered respectful obeisance to the elderly, superior members of his family.
His next duty was to give cows in charity to the Brahmanas. Every day, Lord Krishna used to give many groups of 13,084 cows. Each of the cows was decorated with a silken cover and pearl necklace. Their horns were covered with gold plating, and their hooves were silver plated. All of them were full of milk, due to having their firstborn cows with them, and they were very tame and peaceful. When the cows were given in charity to the Brahmanas also were given nice silken garments, and each was given a deer skin and sufficient quantity of sesame seeds. The Lord is generally known as Go Brahman Hitayacha, which means that his first duty is to see to the welfare of the cows and the brahmanas. Thus, he used to give cows in charity to the brahmanas, with opulent decorations and paraphernalia. Then, wishing for the welfare of all living entities, he would touch auspicious articles such as milk, honey, ghee, clarified butter, gold, jewels, and fire. Although the Lord is by nature very beautiful, due to the perfect figure of his transcendental body, he would dress himself in yellow garments and put on his necklace of Kaustubha jewels. He would wear flower garlands, smear his body with the pulp of sandalwood, and decorate himself with similar cosmetic and ornaments. It is said that the ornaments themselves became beautiful upon being placed on the transcendental body of the Lord. After decorating himself in this way, the Lord would then look at marble statues of the cow and calf and visit temples of God or demigods like Lord Shiva. There were many brahmanas who would come daily to see the Supreme Lord before taking their breakfast. They were anxious to see him, and he welcomed them. His next duty was to please all kinds of men belonging to different castes, both in the city and within the palace compound. He made them happy by fulfilling their different desires. And when the Lord saw them happy, he also became very pleased. The flower garlands, betel nuts, sandalwood pulp, and other fragrant cosmetic articles offered to the Lord would be distributed by him, first to the brahmanas and elderly members of the family, then to the queens, and then to the ministers, and if there was still some balance, he would engage it for his own personal use. By the time the Lord finished all these daily duties and activities, his charioteer, Daruka, would come with his wonderful chariot to stand before the Lord with folded hands, imitating that the chariot was ready, and the Lord would come out of the palace to travel. Then the Lord, accompanied by Uddhava and Satyaki, would ride on the chariot just as sun god rides on his chariot in the morning, appearing with his blazing rays on the surface of the world. When the Lord was about to leave his palaces, all the queens would look at him with feminine gestures. The Lord would respond to their greetings with smiles, attracting their hearts so much that they would feel intense separation from him.
Then the Lord would go to the assembly house known as Sudharma. It may be remembered that the Sudharma assembly house was taken away from the heavenly planets and established in the city of Dwarka. The specific significance of the assembly house was that anyone who entered it would be freed from the 6 kinds of material pangs, namely hunger, thirst, lamentation, illusion, old age, and death. These are the whips of material existence, and as long as one remained in that Sudharma assembly house, he would not be affected by these 6 material whips. The Lord would say goodbye in all the 16,000 palaces, and again he would become one and enter the Sudharma assembly house in procession with other members of the Jadu dynasty. After entering the assembly house, he used to sit on the exalted royal throne and would be seen to emanate glaring rays of transcendental effulgence. In the midst of all, the great heroes of the Yadu dynasty, Krishna, resembled the full moon in the sky surrounded by multi-luminaries. In the assembly house were professional jokers, dancers, musicians, and ballet girls. And as soon as the Lord sat on his throne, they would begin their respective functions to please the Lord and put him in a happy mood. First of all, the jokers would talk in such a way that the Lord and associates would enjoy their humor. which would refresh the morning mood. The dramatic actors would then play their parts, and the dancing ballet girls would separately display their artistic movements. All these functions would be accompanied by the beating of mridanga drums and the sounds of the veena, flutes, and bells, followed by the sound of the muraja, another type of drum. To these musical vibrations, the auspicious sound of the conch shell would be added. The professional singers, called shrutas and magadas, would sing, and others would perform their dancing art. In this way, as devotees, they would offer respectful prayers to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Sometimes the learned brahmanas present in that assembly would chant Vedic hymns and explain them to the audience to the best of their knowledge. And sometimes some of them would recite old historical accounts of the activities of prominent kings. The Lord, accompanied by his associates, would be very pleased to hear them.
Once upon a time, a person arrived at the gateway of the assembly house who was unknown to all the members of the assembly, and with the permission of Lord Krishna, he was admitted into the assembly by the doorkeeper. The doorkeeper was ordered to present him before the Lord, and the man appeared and offered his respectful obeisances unto the Lord with folded hands. It had happened that when King Jarasandha conquered all other kingdoms, many kings did not bow their heads before Jarasandha, and consequently all of them, numbering 20,000, were arrested and made his prisoners. The man brought before Lord Krishna by the doorkeeper was a messenger from all these imprisoned kings. Being duly presented before the Lord, the man began to relay a message from the kings as follows.
Dear Lord, you are the eternal form of transcendental bliss and knowledge. As such, you are beyond the reach of the mental speculation or vocal description of any materialistic man within this world. A slight portion of your glories can be known by persons fully surrendered unto your lotus feet, and by your grace only such persons become freed from all material anxieties. Dear Lord, we are not among these surrendered souls. We are still within the duality and illusion of this material existence. We therefore take shelter of your lotus feet, for we are afraid of the cycle of birth and death. Dear Lord, we think that there are many living entities like us who are eternally entangled in fruitive activities and their reactions. They are never inclined to follow your instructions by performing devotional service. Although it is pleasing to the heart and most auspicious for one's existence, on the contrary, they are against the path of Krishna conscious life, and they are wandering within the three worlds, impelled by the illusory energy of material existence.
Dear Lord, who can estimate your mercy and your powerful activities? You are present always as the insurmountable force of eternal time, baffling the indefatigable desire of the materialistics, who are thus repeatedly confused and frustrated. We therefore offer our respectful obeisance unto you in your form of eternal time. Dear Lord, you are the proprietor of all the worlds, and you have incarnated yourself with your plenary expansion, Lord Balaram. It is said that your appearance in this incarnation is for the purpose of protecting the faithful and destroying the miscreants. Under these circumstances, how is it possible that miscreants like Jarasandha can put us into such deplorable conditions of life against your authority? We are puzzled at the situation and cannot understand how it is possible. It may be that Jarasandha has been deputed to give us such trouble because of our past misdeeds. But we have heard from revealed scriptures that anyone who surrenders unto your lotus feet is immediately immune to the reaction of sinful life. We therefore offer ourselves wholeheartedly unto your shelter, and we hope that your Lordship will now give us full protection. We have now come to the real conclusion of our lives. Our kingly position were nothing but the reward of our first pious activities. Just as our suffering, imprisonment by Jarasandha is the result of our past impious activities. We realize now that the reaction of both pious and impious activities are temporary and that we can never be happy in this conditioned life. The material body is awarded to us by the modes of material nature, and on account of this we are full of anxieties. The material condition of life simply involves bearing the burden of this dead body as result of fruitive activities. We have thus been subject to being based of burden for these bodies, and being forced by conditioned life, we have given up the pleasing life of Krishna consciousness. Now we realize that we are the most foolish persons. We have been entangled in the network of material reactions due to our ignorance. We have therefore come to the shelter of your lotus feet, which can immediately eradicate all the result of fruitive actions and thus free us from the contamination of material pains and pleasures.
Dear Lord, because we are now surrendered soul at your lotus feet, you can give a relief from the entrapment of fruitive action made possibly by Jarasandha. Dear Lord, it is known to you that Jarasandha possesses the power of 10,000 elephants, and within this power he has imprisoned us just as a lion hypnotizes a flock of sheep. Dear Lord, you have already fought with Jarasandha 18 times consecutively, out of which you have defeated him 17 times by surpassing his extraordinary powerful position. But in your 18th fight, you exhibited your human behavior, and thus it appeared that you were defeated. Dear Lord, we know very well that Jarasandha cannot defeat you at any time, for your power, strength, resources, and authority are unlimited. No one can equal you or surpass you. Your apparent defeat by Jarasandha in the 18th engagement was nothing but an exhibition of human behavior. Unfortunately, foolish Jarasandha could not understand your tricks, and he has since then become puffed up over his material power and prestige. Especially, he has arrested and imprisoned us unknowingly fully that as your devotee we are subordinate to your sovereignty.
Messenger concluded, "Now I have explained the awful position of the kings, and your lordship can consider and do whatever you like. As the messenger and representative of all those imprisoned kings, I have submitted my words before your lordship and presented their prayers to you. All the kings are very anxious to see you so that they can all personally surrender at your lotus feet. My dear Lord, be merciful upon them and act for their good fortune." At the very moment the messenger of the imprisoned kings was presenting the appeal before the Lord, the great sage Narada arrived. Because he was a great saint, his hair was dazzling like gold, and when he entered the assembly house, it appeared that the sun god was personally present in the midst of the assembly. Lord Krishna is the worshipable master of even Lord Brahma and Lord Shiva. Yet, as soon as he saw that the sage Narada had arrived, he immediately stood up with his ministers and secretaries to receive the great sage and offer his respectful obeisances by bowing his head. The great sage Narada took a comfortable seat, and Lord Krishna worshipped him with all paraphernalia as required for the regular reception of a saintly person. While trying to satisfy Narada Ji, Lord Krishna spoke the following words in his sweet and natural voice.
My dear great sage among the demigods, I think that now everything is well within the three worlds. You are perfectly eligible to travel everywhere in space in the upper, middle, and lower planetary systems of this universe. Fortunately, when we meet you, we can very easily take information from your holiness of all the news of the three worlds. For within this cosmic manifestation of the Supreme Lord, there is nothing concealed from your knowledge. You know everything, and so I wish to question you. Are the Pandavas doing well? And what is the present plan of King Yudhisthira? Will you kindly let me know what they want to do at present? The great sage Narada spoke as follows. My dear Lord, you have spoken about the cosmic manifestation created by the Supreme Lord. But I know that you are the all-pervading creator. Your energies are so extensive and inconceivable that even powerful personalities like Brahma, the Lord of this particular universe, cannot measure your inconceivable power. My dear Lord, you are present as the super soul in everyone's heart by your inconceivable potency, exactly like the fire which is present in everyone, but which no one can see directly. In conditional life, all living entities are within the jurisdiction of the three modes of material nature. As such, they are unable to see your presence everywhere with their material eyes. By your grace, however, I have seen many times the action of your transcendental, inconceivable potency, and therefore, when you ask me for the news of the Pandavas, which is not at all unknown to you, I am not surprised at your inquiry. What are we going to do? We're going to stop.
Okay, Hare Krishna, devotees, dear devotees. So this concludes our today's every week Sunday reading of Krishna book to Srila Prabhupada. Let's offer our respectful obeisances to him and to each other. Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti-Vedanta Swaminiti Namane Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshadarine Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhuvevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namah. It's like Mahadevi Mataji, she spoke to me and she says like you'd like to give us some discourse about Srila Prabhupada Katha more, like till 6 p.m. if it's possible for you.
Sure, I can shortly.
Yeah. Oh, you'd like to sit down? You'd like to sit down?
I'd like to sit down.
So let me introduce to the viewers online. Introduce you to the viewers. So here we have with us His Grace Abhirama Prabhu. He's a very senior disciple of Srila Prabhupada, and right now he's going to give a short discourse about the various pastimes he had with Srila Prabhupada, like a memory.
Om Agyana Timirandasya Gyanan Gyana Salakaya Chaksuran Militan Jaina Tasmai Sri Guruve Namaha. So the role of the spiritual master is profound, crucial to spiritual life, and at the same time, it's very mystical. Srila Jiva Goswami, who is really the technical philosopher in our sampradaya, he has explained that both Shiva Tattva and Guru Tattva are the most difficult, mysterious to understand. So what is it? Of course, in the simplest form, Lord said again and again, Lord Krishna is actually Guru. He expands his Shankarshan for so many functions, but one of those very important functions is to be Guru. So the foundation of the parampara ultimately goes to Lord Shankarshan and Lord Krishna, who are one and the same. And the idea of Guru is that the Lord, when the conditioned soul or any soul wants to enter into more deeper understanding, even the purest soul will seek out the Guru, to seek out the deeper understanding, the more to expand his knowledge of the Lord. What to speak of those of us who are fallen in this material world. And the Lord is at the same time reaching out to those souls who are seeking him. He is personally reaching out. And as in all of the activities of the Lord, his devotees are very eager to assist him, to participate, to join in with him in all of his leelas, in his dancing, in his playing with the cows, in his joyful pastimes in the fields or in the village, stealing the butter. The devotees of the Lord are very eager to participate, to observe, to join in, to assist. And so it is with the Lord's action as Guru. The devotees are eager to assist him. And so some of those devotees come and appear as the Lord in the form of a devotee. They're actually the ambassador directly of the Lord. And so we worship them just like the Lord himself. The example is given as of the ambassador that when he comes, however you treat him, the nation is observing. If he represents India and you abuse him, India will become offended. Because he is representing India itself. And so, how you treat Guru is observed by the Lord, and as you learn to treat Guru properly, the Lord becomes more and more pleased and more interested in us. However, in the early stages, we are afflicted with a very kanista view. And we like to think there's only one Guru, I have only one Guru. And so we show some great respect to that Guru and we ignore all other devotees. But in so many ways, they are all Guru. Elder devotees are on one level, even our God brothers, same peers, same age, same experience, they're also Prabhu. To be invited into the Lord's pastimes, one's heart must be melted like butter. The Lord is not interested in your position in society, how you dress, how much you think you can impress people. He's only interested in how soft and pure your heart is. And that cultivation is actually the objective of all of the sadhana practices and all of the proper behaviors that we're taught. And one of those most important behaviors, Srila Prabhupada had taught us in the early days, that each one of our Prabhus we address as Prabhu. And we also offer our obeisances to those Prabhus. And in sincerity within our heart, we cultivate that feeling. So at first by the action of bowing and speaking nicely to other devotees, that helps to train the mind to think nicely. And as the mind starts thinking nicely, the heart becomes a little softer and we start feeling some affection. See? So it isn't just the one-person guru, it's the entire family of devotees who the Lord has gifted us to live within. And how we behave with each and every one, not just even those devotees, how we behave with each and every living being. Even the ant, even the dog. The heart must become soft if we want to enter into Krishna's favor, if we want him to look at us favorably. So the Guru is at the core of that vision. He's guiding us to come in that way. He helps us because he's such an elevated and great personality. It's very easy for us to show great respect and affection and service. He makes it very easy. Just like to serve Srila Prabhupada. Everyone found it very easy to serve Srila Prabhupada because he was such a great personality. But not all of the living entities will be so attractive and so elevated. But still, we have to develop that humility, that compassion, that love, ultimately for all living entities. So again, the Guru is in the core of that learning because he is on the highest level. But that doesn't mean we neglect the lowest level. This is a being a Kanista Adhikari is a very early stage, and actually it's more of a disease. It's not just neophyte. Being Kanista means that you're limiting, you're not seeing the Lord in all things. You're not seeing the Lord amongst all the devotees. You're not seeing Guru. You're not serving all of the devotees as the servants of Krishna. You're just saying, oh, just my little family or only my Guru. And this is a common thing, we see it. But this will not be attractive to the Lord, and this is not the real lesson that Guru comes to teach us, right? So, Srila Prabhupada, you all know so many pastimes of Srila Prabhupada, and one very clear example that he gave was his great humility and love and compassion for everyone who came in his presence. He never, except for an offender of devotees, he was always so happy for anyone who came and greeted him or offered something or that he interacted with. Even on the airplane, the pilot, in the old days, the pilots, now because of security, everything's changed. But when I was young and Prabhupada was there, the pilots in every flight would hand the control to their assistant, and they would walk through the passenger and talk to every passenger and say, how are you? How is your flight? That was a habit that had been passed down from the old boat captains in the old times, that the captain would walk his ship and meet everybody and see everything. And so the airplane pilots used to do that also. And they would always stop for a little extra time with Prabhupada. And he would always smile, a beautiful, beaming, sunshine smile, and give real affection and real response to the question that the pilot would ask. How are you, sir? Are you feeling okay? Are you comfortable? And Prabhupada would very genuinely, and he was always remembered by those people, everyone he touched. I once was walking in New York with Srila Prabhupada in New York City in a very bad area. We used to have a temple on a street called Henry Street in Brooklyn. And this would have been 1972. I think 72 or 71. I'm sorry, I can't exactly remember. But we were in the morning, we were walking over there was a bridge from the residential neighborhood, and there was a highway which was down about 25, 30 feet in the ground, like a nala, like a ditch. So over that was a bridge, a walking bridge. So we walked across that bridge, and on the other side was the industrial area, big go-downs and things. And this was a very, not such a, it was a very bad neighborhood. It was such a neighborhood that, and in fact on this day we were walking and the lane, the BBT had a printing office in one of these go-downs. It was a rented office. So we were going to the BBT to see the BBT. And as we were walking in that lane to go amongst the go-downs, from the night before there was one stolen car, and the bonnet was open, the motor was gone, the tires were gone, everything was stripped out. This was that kind of neighborhood where the thieves would bring the car to steal everything, and they left the shell. So as we were walking down this lane, there were three homeless men. New York has always had a lot of homeless men. Where Prabhupada first started was the Bowery, and what most of you don't understand, it wasn't that America in those days was producing so many drunkards. These men who lived in the Bowery, who lived in rooms, literally, there would be one big go-down with just a partition dividing, not even on the ceiling. You could hear the man in the next one. That partition, I've seen those. They were 6 feet by 4 feet. Just enough for one man to lay down and put a small bag and lock a small door. And they would share one big bath. And all these men were there drinking themselves to death. Why? What we today call PTSD. They were all veterans of World War II. There was no psychological care for them, no place for them. They got some pension from the army, but they were so broken from the murderous experience of the war, they could do nothing but drink themselves to death. So that was the neighborhood that Prabhupada had started in the Bowery. Now this was a similar group of men. I'm back to this go-down area. And three men were sitting on the step of a building, and we started walking in that way, so they were sitting on the side of the walkway. And one of them turned his head, the other ones turned their head, and they saw Prabhupada. And they instantly stood up like somebody had grabbed their collar and lifted them up. Because these were military men from the before. They were just broken men drinking and dying, because they were so sad in their heart. But when they saw Prabhupada, they stood up like soldiers and they saluted him. And Prabhupada, Hare Krishna, like that. And they just watched as he walked by, like he was the general. And they were, for that moment, they were lifted up and they became glorious in that moment because they honored him. See? And how did they know? Everybody knew. Anyone who had half a brain who saw Prabhupada immediately understood this is not an ordinary human being. You could hardly understand how he was walking on the ground. It just didn't seem normal. How he moved, how elegantly he moved. It was like, almost like a dance group was coming down the street. It was hard to understand it. There was something very, very unusual and magical about it. So this was even a drunken, broken man like that could understand who he was. What to speak of the devotees. Now I'm saying this for another reason, which I talked before, that this is one of the wonderful things about having proper Uttama Adhikari as guru, because it makes it very easy to give our faith. And we must give our faith, and we must become submissive, and we must hear the truth from him in order to make any progress. But as we make progress, we have to expand that attitude to all types of devotees. And you'll find that so much wisdom will come. The more that your heart softens, the more that you develop genuine respect. One of the dangers of the institutional experience is that we start thinking that a person is advanced according to his duty in the institution. We actually measure. And then what happens? Then we start thinking, well, I want a position in the institution. And I want to have a little fancier kurta. And I want to sit on the big fancy chair. And we start thinking that that is going to be what will help us. But it will not. Not even a little bit. In fact, it can easily hurt us. So the philosophy, the words of the rishis and the acharyas never say that. They never say anything like that. The symptom of an advanced devotee is humility, surrender, selfless service to others, always giving to others. There was a devotee, an old man. He was a beautiful old man. He was actually from Prabhupada's. Yes, he was. He used to distribute. I'll try to remember his name. He used to distribute Charnamrita in the temple. I think he died about 15 years ago. But he was very old. And in Prabhupada's time, he was there. And he had this simple service every day. And I remember when I would come and put my hand out, he would take my hand in his hand, and he would so carefully put the Charnamrita with so much love. I thought it was like my grandmother. Bibhu Chaitanya. Correct, Bibhu Chaitanya. Thank you very much, Prabhu. Glorious person. So humble. He did very simple service. He worked in the pujari room. One day, middle of the day, Prabhupada was outside walking, and after the morning program, so there weren't many devotees, and Prabhupada heard some singing coming out of the pujari room. And he came up and he listened, and it was Bibhu Chaitanya singing Mahamantra. And Prabhupada said, "This is pure devotional service." He didn't say that to the GBCs. I never heard him say that to the GBCs. And I was around all the time. I never heard that. Of course, he appreciated their work, but I never heard him stop and be stunned and say, "This is pure devotional service." Right? And what was he? Just a simple, humble, loving, dedicated devotee. And that is the real goal of life. So I'm trying to give a simple message that the institution is of great value, but don't make the mistake of thinking that you'll go back to Godhead by the institution. You will not. You will not. It's just like we have a house, we appreciate the house, we take care of the house, we're very happy we have a house, but we will be leaving that house someday. Thank you very much. We have an institution. It's wonderful. It gives us shelter. It gives us so many things. But there's something more that we must focus on, something else that we must focus on to actually make real spiritual advancement. So all of that is contained in Shishastakam. Read Shishastakam regularly and think this is actually the user manual for the Bhakti Marg. You know, you buy something and it comes in a box, and you open some electric gizmo or something, you don't know exactly what to do. You get a paper that comes with it. Huh? It tells you what to do. And if you don't follow the paper, it won't work. It's a simple thing. So the operating instruction of the Bhakti Marg is there in the Shastra, and all summarized in such a beautiful way in Shishastakam. Right? And so that's the actual thing. And spiritual master, especially Srila Prabhupada, has made it so easy. Now, Srila Prabhupada is founder Acharya. And I just want to say something about this in definition. He's not the founder Acharya, and then we have the second Acharya, or the vice Acharya, and the local Acharya, and the zonal Acharya. No. It's not a modifier. Founder is not a modifier. It's a separate idea. He's the Acharya of ISKCON. There is no other Acharya of ISKCON, but there are many, many Acharyas in the sense of they're giving examples. And many, many gurus. Many Siksha gurus, many other gurus, right? But the Acharya in ISKCON is His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhakti-Vedanta Swami Prabhupada, forever and forever. He was asked that question and he said yes. For as long as it exists. And he's also the founder. So it's, again, founder, Acharya. Founder is not a modifier to Acharya. And then you can have other types of Acharyas. Vice Acharya, and third Acharya, and fourth Acharya. No. There's one Acharya for ISKCON. And that's a wonderful thing for all of us, because it makes it very easy to surrender to such a obviously wonderful personality. In all the things you'll read about your whole life, you'll never read about a person that's so attractive as Srila Prabhupada, isn't it? Huh? When you read about him, you think, wow, I just want to keep hearing about him. I want to just think about him. I want to bow down and for even... He seems to not be moving. But as you start embracing, putting your faith in him, in fact, he will move within your heart. He will speak within your heart. He will appear within your dreams. He will speak through his purports, through the Bhakti-Vedanta purports. You'll start to hear him speak to you, because that's what those purports are. It's Srila Prabhupada speaking to you. And he took great pain to record everything. You know, that wasn't just us doing it. We wouldn't have thought of it in the early days. It was he who got a tape recorder practically before he had any followers. He was tape recording. And that was for you. So there's really no big deal that we were there earlier, you're there a little later. He was talking to you equally. That's why he took the trouble to record it, to write it down. Very personal. It's a very personal relationship that you must cultivate. It's not an institutional relationship. It's not institutionally controlled or mandated or given. Just like governments like you to think that they're giving you freedoms, right? But actually they only take away freedoms. The individual naturally has freedom. God gave you freedom. And similarly, God gave you Srila Prabhupada and gave you the Maha Mantra. So the institution is there, like a government, properly, to support, to assist, to serve. The opportunity to hear the Lord's name and to be guided by the spiritual master has already been given. When Mahaprabhu came, he already gave you liberation. You just have to take it. It's already spilled all over the place. He knocked, just like Krishna knocked over the pots of butter and spilled it everywhere so the monkeys could come and just gobble it. Similarly, Mahaprabhu did the same thing. He spilled out the opportunity to chant the holy name. This was not given in the past. The holy name was always there, but it was not freely. It was a very elevated mantra, because what you're saying in one of our acharyas has described the Maha Mantra as Krishna calling Radha, Hari, Hari, and Radha calling back Krishna, Krishna, Hari. So it's Madhurya Ras. It's the back and forth relation. This is very intimate. This was not given to even the common sadhu. It was not given. So this is what Mahaprabhu has done. He's broken those rules. He's spilled it out. He's given it freely. So that's already given. And Srila Prabhupada has already given the gift to the whole world. And now we have to genuinely take it. So I didn't really tell any stories, but I just thought to talk about that briefly. It's very important to keep trying to understand what is the guru in my life? What does guru mean in my life? And, you know, I began this with that reference that ultimately Krishna is reaching through to touch our heart. And when we reach out, we actually have his hand. He takes our hand. He's very eager to take our hand. But we don't know how to do it. We don't know how to behave. We don't know where to look. As Prabhupada once told a Christian philosopher, a Christian scholar, he said, you pray, hallowed be thy name. The Christians in their prayer, that's one of their phrases, hallowed be thy name. That means the name of God is hallowed or holy. So Prabhupada told him that, you say that. And he said, yes. And Prabhupada said, so what is the name? And the Christian said, well, we don't know the name, actually. And Prabhupada said, well, I know the name, and I can tell you. And he said, and I know his address also. So the agency of Guru is the devotees being excited by Krishna's pastime of reaching out to the fallen souls. Just like the devotees get excited when they see Krishna playing in the cow fields, or when they see him dancing in the evening under the moon. They get and they want to participate, and they want to join in, or they want to bring flowers, or they want to rain flowers down, or they want to stand and hide and observe. Just like Lord Shiva wanted to see these pastimes, right? And he couldn't even come in. He had to disguise himself as a gopi to try to see. So the devotees get excited. They're fully enlivened by Krishna's pastimes, and they want to assist. And similarly, that pastime of the Lord reaching out and pulling his devotees closer to him, the devotees get excited and they want to assist, and that's called Guru. Those are the devotees who are assisting the Lord in that pastime. And they also add, just like all of the devotees in those leelas, they're not just there for their own benefit, they're fully there for Krishna's benefit, and therefore they're giving something to that leela. They're adding something to that leela. Their own sweetness, their own love is enhancing the experience of the Lord himself and enhancing the experience of everyone participating. Similarly, these devotees, like Srila Prabhupada, they also add, like Sukadeva Goswami, it said that the sukha means the parrot. And there's an idea that when the mango is ripening, when the parrot breaks the skin a little, it causes the sweetness to increase. And therefore he's called Sukdev. So when someone who loves the Lord, like Srila Prabhupada loves the Lord and is so friendly and intimate with the Lord, when he adds his own way of speaking about the Lord, it becomes sweeter. And we become more attracted. And then the Lord becomes happy. He becomes pleased again. So it's an ever-ending, expanding joy and happiness and pleasure as the Lord enjoys it, and then the devotees enjoy it. We enjoy it. Even at the low level that we're at, we feel such happiness and joy by the mercy of these Vaishnavas. So, is there anything else I should say? It's a little late. You've all tolerated me for some time. Okay. Yes. I think I'm giving Bhagavatam on Tuesday. He asked me, Dharma. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Hari Bol.